My sister's wedding was perfect until I found her groom's watch in my bedroom, the same watch I'd given to my boyfriend 6 months ago. I stood there frozen, the silver timepiece catching the afternoon light. The custom engraving on the back stared up at me. To Alex, my forever love, Tavis. My hands trembled as I traced the words I'd carefully selected at the jewelry store months ago. This had to be a mistake, a coincidence, some cruel joke. But the knot in my stomach told me otherwise. I'd been helping my sister Claire with wedding preparations all morning. The perfect sister with the perfect life was getting married tomorrow to her perfect fiancé Edanae James, a man I'd never met until the rehearsal dinner 3 days ago. A man whose face had struck me as oddly familiar, though I couldn't place why Claire had kept him away from family gatherings. Claiming his demanding surgical residency made scheduling impossible. Now I knew why my phone buzzed with a text from my mom. "Where are you?" Ex-eminence waiting at the venue for the final walkthrough. I slipped the watch into my purse and headed to my car. As I drove to the vineyard where tomorrow's ceremony would take place, memories flooded back. Alex, my boyfriend of 2 years, had suddenly broken things off 4 months ago. No real explanation, just that he needed space and wasn't ready for commitment. The irony burned now the pieces were falling into place with sickening clarity. How Claire had become strangely interested in my relationship last year, asking detailed questions about Alex. How she'd encouraged me to give him space when he became distant. How she comforted me through the breakup while planning her own engagement to a man she'd introduced to the family as James. James, who I now realized was Alex, my Alex. I parked at the vineyard, checking my makeup in the rearview mirror to hide any traces of tears. The sprawling estate with its perfect rows of grapes and rustic barn-turned reception hall seemed to mock me. I'd helped Claire choose this venue, admiring how the Golden Hills created the perfect backdrop for wedding photos. As I approached the gathering of family members and the wedding party near the arch where vows would be exchanged, I spotted them, Claire in her flowing white sundress, glowing with bridal excitement, and beside her, his arm around her waist, was the man I'd loved, the man who'd now become James. Our eyes met across the lawn, his face drained of color. Claire waved excitedly, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. "Tess, finally, come help me decide where the string quartet should set up." I took a deep breath and plastered on a smile. My fingers closed around the watch in my purse. By tomorrow, everyone would know the truth. I made it through 30 excruciating minutes of wedding planning before I couldn't take it anymore. Claire was discussing flower arrangements with my mother when I pulled the watch from my purse. "I found something interesting today," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. The chatter died down. My mother looked annoyed at the interruption, but Claire's eyes fixed on the watch, then darted to Alex, or James as everyone called him. "That's James's watch," my mother said. "Why do you have it?" Alex stepped forward, his face a mask of practiced calm. "Actually, I've been looking for that. Must have left it at the house last time I visited." "Funny," I said, turning the watch over to reveal the engraving, because I distinctly remember giving this to my boyfriend Alex 6 months ago. The engraving even has my name. The silence that followed was deafening. Claire recovered first, laughing nervously. "Diest, what are you talking about?" "That's James. You've never dated him, haven't I?" I looked directly at Alex. "Should I call you Alex or James today?" His Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed hard. "Consis, we should talk privately, I think." "We're past that," I said. Louder now. "I think everyone here deserves to know that my sister's perfect fiancé was my boyfriend until 4 months ago. The same boyfriend who suddenly broke things off without explanation. My father stepped between us. Tess, that's enough. You are making a scene." Claire's eyes filled with tears as she clutched Alex's arm. "Why are you doing this? You are ruining everything." "I'm ruining everything." I laughed bitterly. "That's rich coming from you." Memories flooded back of Claire and me as children, how we'd been inseparable once, how she'd looked up to me as her big sister, following me everywhere, wanting everything I had. The way that admiration had slowly transformed into something else as we grew older. Alex finally spoke, addressing the confused wedding party. "Here's been a misunderstanding, I think. Sure Ez is confused." "Am I?" I pulled out my phone, scrolling to photos of us together, Alex and me, smiling, his arm around my waist, the same arm now wrapped around my sister. "You guys," then my mother grabbed my arm, pulling me aside. "Stop this right now," she hissed. "You've always been jealous of your sister's happiness. I won't let you ruin her wedding with these delusions." I yanked my arm away. "It's the same man, ask him." Claire was sobbing now, the perfect victim. "Why are you making this up? James and I have been together for over a year." The timeline couldn't add up. We'd still been together then, but everyone was looking at me like I was the villain. Alex guided Claire away, whispering in her ear. My cousin Emily approached me cautiously. "Tashius, are you okay? Maybe you should go home and rest." The realization hit me. No one was going to believe me. Not without proof beyond a watch and some photos that could be explained away. As the family dispersed into shocked whispers, my father approached. His expression was a mixture of disappointment and anger I'd seen many times before, always directed at me, never at Claire. "You need to leave now." His voice was cold. "And if you can't be supportive tomorrow, don't bother coming to the wedding." I looked past him to where my mother was comforting Claire, who was putting on the performance of a lifetime. Alex stood nearby, his expression unreadable. "This isn't over," I said, clutching the watch. "Not by a long shot." My mother called 17 times that night. I didn't answer. Instead, I sat on my apartment floor, surrounded by photo albums and mementos, tracing the pattern of my relationship with Claire through the years. There was the childhood talent show where she'd performed the exact same song I'd rehearsed for weeks. The high school graduation where she'd somehow managed to be named most likely to succeed, the same title I'd received 2 years earlier. The college boyfriend who'd broken up with me only to start dating Claire a month later. How had I never seen the pattern on the 18th call? I finally answered. "He says he dated you briefly before meeting Claire," my mother said without preamble. "And he says it was nothing serious, and he didn't want to make things awkward by mentioning it." "Nothing serious." I choked out. "We talked about moving in together." "Well, obviously he felt differently about the relationship than you did." Her tone was dismissive. "Claire is devastated that you would try to ruin her wedding out of jealousy." "Jealousy?" I was speechless. "Mom, she stole my boyfriend and is marrying him under a different name." "James is his middle name," she replied coolly. "He's always gone by both, and frankly, Tazix, even if there is some overlap, you need to let this go. The wedding is happening tomorrow whether you approve or not." The casual way she brushed aside this betrayal made my blood boil. "So I am just supposed to smile and pretend this is normal, that my sister didn't deliberately steal a man I loved?" "What I am saying is that your sister deserves her happiness. She's found a wonderful man who wants to marry her. Whatever happened between you and him is in the past." The implication was clear. Claire's happiness mattered more than mine. It always had. After hanging up, I called my father, hoping for a different response. "Dad, you have to see how wrong this is." His sigh was heavy with resignation. "Taste us. I don't know what happened between you and this young man, but I do know that Claire loves him and he chose her. Sometimes Sometimes we don't get what we want in life. This isn't about not getting what I want. It's about Claire deliberately taking it from me. Now you are being childish, he said. Your sister has always looked up to you. Maybe she falls for similar men, but that doesn't mean she's trying to hurt you. I hung up, frustrated, tears streaming down my face. They would never see Claire as anything but perfect. My phone buzzed with a text from Alex. We need to talk. Mitsumi at Riverfront Park tomorrow at 9 a.m. I stared at the message, noting it was carefully timed early enough to clear this up before the 2 p.m. ceremony. I didn't respond, but I knew I would go. I needed answers. Sleep eluded me as I replayed moments from the past year. Claire asking about my dates with Alex, offering relationship advice when things got rocky, comforting me after the breakup, all while dating him herself. The next morning, I arrived at the park early, sitting on a bench overlooking the river. The day was mockingly beautiful, perfect wedding weather. Alex arrived at precisely 9, looking tired but handsome in casual clothes. So different from the tuxedo he'd wear later. Mia, he began, sitting beside me. I know you are hurt, but it's not what you think. I said nothing. Waiting Claire and I, it happened after you and I broke up. I didn't plan it. Then why the name change? Why hide that you knew me? He looked away. Claire thought it would be easier. That you might not be supportive if you knew, so you both lied. For months I pulled out the watch, and this you are wearing my gift while engaged to my sister. I should have gotten rid of it, he admitted. It was stupid to keep it. Or maybe you kept it because you knew this whole relationship with Claire is a mistake. His expression hardened. I am marrying Claire today. I came to ask you not to make a scene. She loves you, Tazit, despite what you think. She wants you there. As he walked away, I wondered who I hated more in that moment, him for his betrayal, or myself for still caring. I didn't go back to my apartment after the park. Something about Alex's story didn't add up, and I needed answers beyond the he said, she said with no witnesses. Instead, I drove to my childhood home, knowing my parents would be at the wedding venue already. I still had a key, the one thing Claire hadn't managed to take from me. The house was eerily quiet as I slipped inside. Photos of Claire and James covered the mantel, their engagement shots prominently displayed where family photos once sat. My stomach turned at how quickly I'd been erased. I headed straight for Claire's old bedroom, now converted to a guest room, but still housing some of her belongings. If there was evidence of when their relationship really began, it would be here. I felt like an intruder as I opened drawers and searched through closets, finding nothing until I checked under the bed. There in a decorative box, I found what I was looking for. Claire's journals. She'd kept them religiously since we were children. Hands shaking, I opened the one dated from last year. Maava Mia brought Alex home for dinner tonight. The way he looks at her makes me sick. She doesn't deserve him. She doesn't even appreciate how perfect he is. I would treasure him the way she never could. Asterisk, my heart pounded as I flipped through more entries. Day up, I accidentally ran into Alex at the coffee shop today. He didn't suspect a thing, thinks it's cute how similar my tastes are to Tezid's. If only he knew. Asterisk sent those texts from Tadish's phone while she was in the shower. Just subtle things to make him doubt her commitment. It's working, he seemed distant with her tonight. Asterisk Sen told Alex that Tezid has been talking about how suffocated she feels in their relationship. A little push here and there and he'll break things off himself. Asterisk, I felt physically ill as I read entry after entry detailing how Claire had methodically sabotaged my relationship, how she deliberately created misunderstandings, planted doubts, and manipulated both of us until Alex finally ended things. And then, Alex called me crying today. He finally broke up with Tezich. I comforted him, of course. Rahadim, I'd always sensed he wasn't happy with her. It won't be long now before he sees that I am the one he really wants. Asterisk Sen convinced Alex to go by James around my family. Rahadim, it would hurt Tessie's too much to see us together so soon. He's so considerate, he agreed immediately. It's better this way, a fresh start by the time Tezich finds out. We'll already be married. Asterisk, I closed the journal, my hands trembling with rage and hurt. This wasn't a case of falling for the same man. This was calculated, deliberate destruction of my relationship. My sister hadn't just taken Alex, she'd actively stolen him through lies and manipulation. As I gathered the journals as evidence, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I know what Claire did to you. I have proof too. Miami at Harborview Calais in 30 minutes if you want the full story. Minus Ethan, James's brother. I hesitated, then replied simply. As I drove to the coffee shop, I realized I was entering dangerous territory. The wedding was in just 4 hours. Any chance of reconciliation with my family would vanish if I pursued this further, but the cold calculation in Claire's journals had changed everything. This wasn't sibling rivalry. It was something much darker. Ethan was waiting at a corner table when I arrived, looking uncomfortable in the button-up shirt he'd probably wear to the wedding later. I recognized him from photos, but had yet to meet him in person. Thanks for coming, he said as I sat down. I don't have much time before I need to be at the venue. Why are you doing this? I asked. Helping me, his expression darkened. Because Claire did the same thing to Alex's ex-girlfriend before you, and because my brother deserves to know who he's really marrying. Wait, what do you mean Alex's ex-girlfriend before me? I asked, my coffee growing cold between my hands. Ethan looked uncomfortable, but determined. About 3 years ago, Alex was engaged to a woman named Rebecca. They were perfect together. At least that's what everyone thought. Then she suddenly broke it off, accused him of cheating, and moved across the country. What does this have to do with Claire? Rebecca contacted me last month after seeing Alex and Claire's engagement announcement online. She said she needed to warn him. Ethan pulled out his phone. She sent me these. He showed me a series of pronto mails between Claire and Rebecca from 3 years ago. Emails where Claire, posing as a concerned co-worker of Alex's, had fed Rebecca lies about an affair that never happened. Claire worked in the same hospital as Alex back then, Ethan explained. She orchestrated the whole breakup. Rebecca only discovered the truth later when the other woman Claire had described turned out not to exist. I felt sick. So this is a pattern. Claire doesn't just want what you have, Tezich. She wants to destroy it first, then take it for herself. Ethan's voice was gentle but firm. Rebecca tried to contact Alex directly, but Claire intercepts his emails and calls. I tried telling him, but he's completely under her spell, looking at the evidence spread between us. My sister's journals, Rebecca's emails, the timeline that showed Claire had been pursuing Alex while we were still together. I felt a strange calm settle over me. She's been doing this our whole lives, I said quietly, taking things that matter to me, making them hers, but never this deliberately, this destructively. To hear is more, Ethan said. Claire's been isolating Alex from friends and family. Renew about you has been pushed away. She's created this narrative that his life only truly began when he met her. Classic manipulation, I murmured. The question is, what are you going to do about it? I checked the time. 11:30 a.m. The ceremony was at 2 p.m. I'm going to stop this wedding, I said, not out of jealousy or even for myself, but because Alex deserves to know the truth about who he's marrying. I'll help you, but we need a plan. Claire's already told everyone you're having some kind of to break down. If you just show up with accusations, they won't believe me, I finished. They never do exactly. We need irrefutable proof presented in a way that can't be dismissed. As we formulated our plan, my phone buzzed with texts from my parents asking where I was if I was coming to the wedding, reminding me not to make a scene. I ignored them all. Here is something else you should know, Ethan said as we were leaving. Claire's been telling everyone a story about you, that you've struggled with jealousy issues your whole life, that you've needed help before when things didn't go your way. The implication was clear. She'd been laying groundwork to discredit me if I ever discovered the truth. Of course she has, I said bitterly. She's thought of everything, not everything, Ethan replied. She doesn't know about Rebecca, and she doesn't know her future brother-in-law can't stand her as we parted. Ways to put our plan in motion. I felt a strange mix of determination and sadness. This wasn't how I'd imagined confronting my sister. There would be no private moment of reconciliation, no tearful admissions or forgiveness. This would be public, messy, and final. I made one last stop before heading to the venue, my apartment, to change. If I was going to crash a wedding, I wouldn't do it looking like I'd spent the night crying. As I slipped into a simple blue dress, I caught my reflection in the mirror. For the first time in months, I recognized the woman staring back at me, stronger now, clearer-eyed. No longer willing to be gaslighted and dismissed, my phone rang as I was leaving. It was Alex. Maya, where are you? Exinez, worried, are they? Or are they just worried I might tell the truth? His silence was telling. I know everything, Alex, about how Claire manipulated us both. About Rebecca before me. About all of it. What are you talking about? But his voice lacked conviction. I think you've had doubts all along. That's why you kept the watch deep down. You know something isn't right about how you and Claire got together. Maya, please. I'll see you at the wedding, Alex. As I hung up, a text came through from Ethan. She's turned everyone against you already. Be careful. Of course she had. Claire had always been good at playing the victim, at turning situations to her advantage. But this time I had something she didn't expect. The truth. The vineyard was transformed. White chairs in perfect rows. Floral arrangements cascading from the ceremony arch. String lights ready to twinkle as day turned to evening. It would have been beautiful if it wasn't built on lies. I parked far from the main entrance, following Ethan's instructions to use the service road. He was waiting for me there, looking nervous in his groomsman's tuxedo. She's got security watching for you at the main entrance, he said. At them, her unstable sister might try to disrupt things. The hurt was instant, but I pushed it down. Did you get everything set up? He nodded, handing me a small remote. All the evidence is loaded on the presentation system for the reception. This will trigger it when you are ready. And Rebecca's on standby for a video call. What about Alex? Clueless. Claire hasn't left his side all day. Ethan checked his watch, etc. A ceremony starts in 20 minutes. You sure you want to do this? I took a deep breath. No one else is going to stop her. We split up. Ethan returned to his groomsman duties, while I made my way to the ceremony site using the vineyard workers' paths. As I approached, I could see guests being seated, my parents greeting people near the front row, looking proud and happy. I slipped behind a large decorative arrangement of wine barrels and flowers, watching as the wedding party began to assemble. Alex stood at the altar, handsome in his tuxedo, but his smile seemed forced as he scanned the crowd looking for me. The music changed, signaling the ceremony was about to begin. I waited, my heart pounding. The bridesmaids processed down the aisle, followed by the flower girl scattering rose petals. Then everyone stood as the bridal march began. Claire appeared at the end of the aisle on my father's arm, radiant in her wedding gown. The same gown she'd asked my opinion on, I realized with a twist of irony. Even in this, she'd wanted my validation. As she approached the altar, I stepped out from my hiding place. I object to this marriage, I said, my voice carrying across the suddenly silent gathering. Claire froze mid-step. Alex's face drained of color. My mother let out an audible gasp. Security, Claire called out, recovering quickly. I told you she might do this. Two men in dark suits approached, but I held up my hand before you remove me. Everyone here deserves to know the truth. I held up Claire's journal. The truth that's in my sister's own words. My father stepped forward, his face flushed with anger. Tazis, how dare you? How dare I? What, Dad? Tell the truth. The truth that Claire deliberately sabotaged my relationship with Alex. Yes, the same man she's about to marry, though you know him as James. That she manipulated both of us, lied to separate us, and then comforted him into a relationship with her. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Alex was staring at Claire now, a question in his eyes. She's lying, Claire said, tears welling perfectly on cue. She's always been jealous of me, ask anyone. I have proof, I said calmly, opening the journal to a marked page, in Claire's own handwriting. Shall I read it aloud? The security men hesitated, looking to my father for guidance. This is ridiculous, Claire, snapped James. Tell her to leave. But Alex was silent, his expression unreadable. I locked eyes with Ethan, who gave an imperceptible nod. It was time for the final revelation. And it's not just me, I continued. Alex, did you ever wonder what really happened with Rebecca? Why she suddenly accused you of cheating and left at the mention of Rebecca's name? Alex's head snapped up. How do you know about Rebecca? Because she knows what Claire did to her too, I said. The same pattern. Manipulation, lies, deliberate sabotage of your relationship so Claire could step in afterward. Claire's composure finally cracked. You are making this up, all of it, am I? I nodded to Ethan, who stepped forward. Alex, everything Taz's saying is true, he said. Rebecca contacted me last month. She has evidence of Claire's manipulation. She's waiting to talk to you right now. The crowd was deadly silent now, all eyes darting between Claire, Alex, and me. Claire looked wildly around, then zeroed in on me with pure hatred in her eyes. You've always wanted to ruin my life. You couldn't stand that someone finally chose me over you. This isn't about who was chosen, I said quietly. This is about who you really are, Claire. Seven, who destroys relationships to get what she wants. Seven, who sees love as a competition. Alex finally spoke, his voice strained. Claire, tell me it isn't true. Claire turned to him, desperation replacing the hatred. Of course it isn't. She's crazy. She's making all this up because she can't stand to see us happy. But something had shifted in Alex's expression. Doubt had crept in the watch, he said slowly. You told me to get rid of it. You said it was from an ex I'd rather forget. But when Tessa showed it yesterday, the look on your face, you knew exactly what it was. James, please, my name is Alex, he said firmly. And I think we need to postpone this wedding. The shocked gasps and whispers erupted into chaos. My mother was sobbing, my father stunned into silence. Claire's perfect day was unraveling exactly as she had feared. As Alex walked away from the altar, Claire's eyes found mine across the shocked crowd. The look she gave me wasn't of a heartbroken bride, but of someone whose carefully constructed facade had been shattered. This isn't over, she mouthed silently, and somehow I knew she was right. 3 hours after I'd stopped the wedding, I sat alone on the steps of the vineyard's main building. The guests had long gone, murmuring in shocked clusters about the day's dramatic turn. The caterers were packing up a reception that would never happen. Claire was with my parents, likely spinning a narrative that would preserve preserve her image at my expense. I didn't care. For the first time in years, the weight of Claire's shadow had lifted. Footsteps approached, and I looked up to see Alex. He loosened his tie and looked exhausted. "Can I sit?" he asked. I nodded, making space beside me. "I just got off a video call with Rebecca," he said after a moment. "She showed me the emails, me everything Claire did 3 years ago." "I am sorry," I said, and meant it. I spoke with Ethan too and read parts of the journal. He ran a hand through his hair. "How did I not see it? Any of it. Claire's very good at what she does," I said simply. "She always has been." We sat in silence, watching the sun begin its descent behind the vineyard hills. "I owe you an apology," Alex finally said. "Not just for today, but for how things ended between us. I should have trusted what we had instead of the doubts Claire planted. We both got manipulated," I said. "Though I'm still angry you didn't tell me who you really were when you met my family." He looked ashamed. "Claire convinced me it would be kinder to you, that you'd been fragile after our breakup." "Classic Claire," I said bitterly, Woins controlling the narrative. More silence fell between us. There was too much damage, too many lies for simple resolution. "What happens now?" I finally asked. "I don't know," he admitted. "I can't go through with marrying Claire, obviously, but you and I," he trailed off. "Can't go back to where we were," I finished for him. He nodded. "Too much has happened." I wasn't sure if I felt relief or sadness at this acknowledgement. Maybe both. My phone buzzed with a text from my father. "We need to talk." "Coming to find you," I showed Alex the message. "You should go. This conversation with my family is long overdue and it needs to happen without you here." He hesitated, then stood. "Will you be okay?" "I'll be fine," I said, and for the first time in months I believed it. As Alex walked away, I saw my parents approaching from the main house. My mother's makeup was streaked with tears, my father's expression grim. "How could you humiliate our family like this?" my mother began before they'd even reached me. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" I exposed the truth, I said calmly. "Something that should have happened long ago. By destroying your sister's wedding day? By making wild accusations?" My father's voice was tight with anger. "They weren't accusations, they were facts. Facts I had proof of. I stood to face them properly. The real question is, why have you always been so quick to believe the worst of me and the best of Claire?" My father faltered slightly. "That's not true." "It is true," I insisted. "My whole life, Claire has taken what matters to me, and you've celebrated her for it. When I object, I am labeled jealous or difficult." "Why is that?" My mother looked away, a flash of something guilt crossing her face. "Mom," I pressed. "What aren't you telling me?" She exchanged a look with my father, some silent communication passing between them. "Tell her," my father said quietly. "It's time." My mother took a shaky breath. "When you girls were born, the doctors told us Claire might not survive. She was so much smaller, had trouble breathing. They prepared us for the worst. But she did survive," I said, confused. "Yes, against all odds, and every milestone after that, her first steps, first words, every accomplishment felt like a miracle after what we'd nearly lost." My mother's eyes filled with fresh tears. "We were so focused on celebrating her survival that we didn't realize what it was doing to you, what it was doing to me," I repeated. "Making you feel less important," my father said, "making you compete for attention you should never have had to compete for." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. All those years of feeling secondary, of watching Claire receive praise for things I'd done first. It hadn't been about Claire being better. It had been about my parents' relief that she was alive at all. "That doesn't excuse what she did," I said after a moment. "The manipulation, the lies." "No," my father agreed. "Surprising me, it doesn't. But it might help explain why she grew up feeling she needed to take things from you to be valued." I let that sink in, this new perspective on the sister I'd both loved and resented my whole life. "What happens now?" I asked, echoing my earlier question to Alex. My mother wiped away tears. "Claire's gone to stay with her friend in the city. She didn't deny what you said after you left. She just kept saying we couldn't understand what it was like living in your shadow." The irony of that statement wasn't lost on any of us. "I think," my father said carefully, "that we all need some time, and maybe some help. Granny help," he clarified, "as a family. It wasn't the dramatic reconciliation or vindication I might have once wanted. It was messy and unresolved, with no guarantees that things would ever be truly right between us. But it was honest, perhaps the first honest conversation we'd had in years." As the sun set over the vineyard, I walked alone to my car. The wedding that wasn't had revealed truths long buried, shattered illusions we'd all maintained. There would be more difficult conversations ahead, more revelations and painful truths to face. But as I drove away from the perfect wedding turned perfect disaster, I felt something unexpected. Hope, not for reconciliation with Alex, or even immediate healing with my family, but hope that in destroying Claire's carefully constructed lies, I might have finally created space for something real to grow. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I pulled over to check it, my heart skipping when I read the message. "This isn't over, Tyest. You've taken everything from me. Now it's my turn to take everything from you." I stared at the screen, a chill running through me despite the warm evening. Then, with deliberate calm, I deleted the message. Claire was right about one thing. This wasn't over. But for the first time in our complicated relationship, I wasn't afraid of her anymore. Whatever came next, I would face it on my own terms. I put the phone down and continued driving, leaving the perfect disaster behind me, heading toward an imperfect but honest future.